As your heroes arrive into the lair, they look across the lava floor to see the town constable. The whole time, it was him. He had caused all the undead to rise in the town. What we're looking at here is the four heroes have arrived at the lair and they can see the big bad evil guy at the very back, and of course he's with this big brute who's going to help protect him. Right in front of them, it's kind of a lava pit, not necessarily complete lava, but if the players fall down there, they're going to take 1d6 fire damage per round that they're down there. So how do they get across? If you look on the sides, you can see about 20-foot distances. There's ways you could potentially be able to jump across. However, there's also these columns that are only 10-foot distances, and basically anybody with a 10 strength should be able to jump across each of these columns using a dexterity check. Now the kicker here is that the big boss, or the big bad evil guy, is going to cast a spell that's going to cause these columns to come in and out of existence. And what that's going to do, it's going to force your players to make an intelligence check. So every time they want to try to jump to the next column, if it's flickering in and out of existence, they have to make an intelligence check to try to see if they can land on those columns. Now again, you don't want to kill your players ever, but you do want to cause them some damage. So maybe 1d6 damage if they do fall off of these columns and fall into the superheated lava floor. Now, in order to climb out of this pit, don't make it very difficult. The floors are already hot. They're taking 1d6 fire damage. It's about a 15-foot column, so that's going to take basically an entire move to get up there. And you don't really have to make them make some type of dexterity check to climb up that. It's basically half your speed, tough terrain. And this is going to help some players really shine that they can move through difficult terrain very easily. And you can classify this as something like mountain climbing. Now, it's really up to you. You can make these columns go in and out of existence every 2 or 3 rounds, or make them just appear very briefly, 1 second per round, and you can have the players then make a reaction check to jump across. Or if you want to make it bigger time span between the different flickerings, you can have the players make an intelligence check. Using their intelligence, they can make a guess of how far they need to jump in order to land where those columns used to be. Meanwhile, the villain has some type of Eldritch Blast that he continuously shoots at the players, really distracting them and making it very difficult for them to get across. I mentioned earlier that on the sides there's some sections where there's maybe about 20 feet distance separating the platform where the heroes are versus the platform that the villain is on. Now the player with very high strength could potentially jump across that 20 foot, but even if they do so, they still have to trek all the way around and go towards the villain. Now, if this is still a little too easy in your opinion, what you could do, which I'm showing you here, is I put 2 men on ballistas. They could actually just be archers if you want, but these archers are also shooting at the heroes as they're trying to get across the columns, or if they're trying to attempt to come through the sides. So these players have to make a lot of decisions at the time. Now, another thing you could do is just have a bunch of boulders right next to the brute, which he essentially chucks at the players as they're coming across. The one thing I'll always say is always remember the main villain is never by themselves. In this case, I put 1 brute, but this brute's going to be pretty powerful. And essentially one of the moves that you can use is anytime that the main boss is going to get hit, one of the reaction moves that the big brute has is essentially being able to jump in the way and taking the damage himself. The other thing to consider is once the players get in, potentially the wall behind them shuts and they're stuck here. Now when the heroes get to the big boss, the primary move that the big brute can have is grabbing them and throwing them into the pit. And this is just another thing which could help make the game just a little more difficult and really prevent any of your players from swarming the big bad evil guy. Now the other thing you can do is add 1 or 2 more henchmen for every single player that there is. And of course, you don't want to make these henchmen too powerful. Give them 4 hit points, very low armor class, leather armor, and only inflicts 1d6 points of damage with short swords. Now the final thing you can do is go back to using that AoE, area of effect. If you haven't seen my video, check it out. Basically, any time that the heroes get onto this platform, one thing that the main villain can do is cast a thunder wave. This will essentially knock all the players back about 15 feet, 20 feet, whatever it takes to get them to fall off this platform. The area of effect is very critical. Now you can't use it every time you have a villain, but it's a really good attack that can help knock your players off of this platform. And that's it, everybody. Today we visited Applied Geomatics Division. I wanted to show you real life example of a villain layer, show you some of the things you can do to make it interesting, increase the difficulty of it depending on how damaged your heroes are. This is RPG Boons, where we talk about everything RPG and how everything is RP. If you like the cut of my gibberish, please hit the subscribe button, leave a comment. You know I'll get back to you. Until our next Applied Geomatics, I'll get back to you.